Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, Miss Mariana and all of friends. We're from the group. There is five. I'm Putri Aisyah, Nova Aulia, Harel Widiawan, Alifia Nabila, and Muhammad Miftahul Ulumuddin. We're here for doing presentation with the title is Interdependence and the Environment. For the first, I'm going to explain about illustrates the collective action problem facing the international community by focusing on one global environment issue. Next, sorry. Global threats to the natural environment are a growing source of interdependence. States' action regarding pollution, conservation, etc. International environmental politics create difficult collective good problems. The basic of states' interest isn't complex like the technical, scientific, etc. The collective good problems arises in each issue area concerning the environment, resource, and population. Next. The world's major fisheries in international are not owned by any states. They are a collective good to avoid depleting the stock of fish. The various fishing states must cooperate by regulating monostate actors such as Ming in 1997 until 2007 cats worldwide. This line significant that made them pay $20 billion a year in subsidies to bankrupt fishing industries. Next. The benefit of fish go entirely to the one catching it. The state's fair quota of fish, no world government have the answer for that. Next. In 1999, fishing state set the goals to reduce flat overcapacity larger than 100 tons at a crowd. While reducing subsidies, the participants are capping the size of fishing flat and calling them back. The agreement is voluntary implementation delay, and the effect on collapsing fisheries probably led to that. Next. The type of collective goods dilemma has been called the tragedy of the commons. The common was sharing grazing land in Britain. Britain solved the problem by enclosure. The solution of environmental collective good problem is based on achieving shared benefit and regimes are an important part of the solution. Next.
Okay, hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Miftahul Ulumuddin and I will explain a matter at this point. And we will talk about the atmosphere right now. As we know, that preserving the health of the Earth's atmosphere is a benefit that affects people throughout the world without regard for their own state's contribution to the problem or its solution. There is two problems of the atmosphere have. First, global warming. The second one is ozone depletion, which we're going to discuss one by one on the next slide. Okay, like I said before, we're going to discuss global warming. This isn't certainly not stranger for you, but to those who don't know, global climate change or global warming is a long-term rise in the average world temperature. Growing and compelling evidence show that global warming is a real problem. It is caused by the emission of carbon dioxide and another gases, and that it will get much worse in the future. We need to know that over the coming decades, according to most estimates, global temperature might rise by between 3 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit if nothing is done. Global warming could flood many coastal cities and affect low-lying areas such as the heavily populated coastal areas of Bangladesh and China. Urgent call for action to avert global warming come from island states in the Pacific that will likely disable dysentery. Okay, next on the slide 3, how did it happen, and what could be the cause? The emissions of gases, mainly carbon dioxide, that cause global warming. These gases result from the broad spectrum of activities that drive an industrial economy. They are a byproduct of burning fossil fuels, oil, coal, and natural gas, to run cars, tractors, furnaces, factories, and so forth. The activities create greenhouse gases, so named because when concentrated in the atmosphere, these gases act like the glass in the greenhouse. The greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, particulate matter from the diesel engine, and dirty coke stoves are also major contributors. For individual states, the cost of reducing greenhouse emissions are almost unrelated to the benefits of a solution. If one state reduces its industrial production or makes expensive investment in new technologies, this will have little effect on the long-term outcome unless other states do likewise. And if most states took such steps, a free rider that did not go along will save money and still benefit from the solution. Global warming thus presents states with a triple dilemma. First, there is the dilemma of short-term cost to gain long-term benefits. Second, specific constitutions such as oil companies and industrial workers pay to the cost, whereas the benefits are distributed more generally across domestic societies and international states. Third, there is the collective goods dilemma among states. Benefits are shared globally, but costs must be extracted from each state individually. This third dilemma is complicated by the North-South divide. How can industrialization of today's poor countries take place without pushing greenhouse emissions to unacceptable levels? Greenhouse gases are produced by each state roughly in proportion to its industrial activity. 40% of all greenhouse emissions come from the United States and China. Carbon dioxide emissions amount to over 17 tons per person annually, about twice the European rate and 3 times China's. Next, there is a Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol, the main international treaty on global warming, which entered into effect in 2005 and mandates cuts in carbon emissions. Almost all the world, major countries except the United States are participants. Moving forward with the US, support with 160 countries in 2001, agreed to implement Kyoto. The agreement called for 40 industrialized countries to reduce emissions to 5% below 1990 levels. By 2012, with binding penalties for failure, the European Union pledged 400 million per year to help the global south reduce its emissions. After enough states ratified it, the treaty came into effect in 2005, and mandatory carbon cuts began in 2008. But they are falling short of targets. At a meeting late in 2040 in Peru, participants agreed on the principle that all states, rich and poor, should commit to limit greenhouse emission. Meanwhile, the United States and China agreed in late 2014, that both countries would accelerate their efforts to reduce emissions. The United States agreed to reduce its emissions by over to 25% by 2025, while China agreed to continue its shift away from coal plants toward alternative energy sources. Next, ozone depletion. Here we move on the next problem. A second major atmosphere problem negotiated by the world governments is the depletion of the world's ozone layer. Ozone high in the atmosphere screens out harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. Certainly, chemicals expelled by industries' economies flow to the top of the atmosphere and interact with ozone and in a way that breaks it down. The sulfates, or CFCs, until recently widely used in refrigeration and in aerosol sprays. As the ozone layer thins, more ultraviolet radiation reached the Earth's surface. Over Antarctica, a seasonal hole in the ozone grew larger year by year. If ozone level keeps rising, the increased radiation could eventually kill off vegetation, reduce agricultural yields, and disrupt ecosystem. Clearly, this was another collective goods problem, in that one state could benefit by allowing the use of CSV in its economy, provided that most other states prohibited their use. But the cost of replacing CFCs were much lower than the cost of addressing global warming. CFCs could be replaced with other chemicals at relatively modest cost. Furthermore, the consequences of ozone depletion were both better understood and more immediate than those of global warming. Next, Montreal Protocol 1987. States had much more success in negotiating agreements and developing regimes to manage ozone depletion than global warming. In the 1987 Montreal Protocol, 22 states agreed to reduce CFCs by 5% by 1998. The timetable was accelerated and the signatories expanded. 81 states agreed to eliminate all CFCs by 2000. In 1992, as evidence of ozone depletion mounted, the schedule was again accelerated, with major industrial states phasing out CFC by 1995. The signatories agreed in principle to Isabel found to help developing countries pay for alternative refrigeration technologies not based on CFCs. Without such an effort, the states of global south would be tempted to free ride and could ultimately undermine the effort. The Montreal Protocol on CFC is the most important success, yet achieved in international negotiation to preserve the global information.
Biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the tremendous diversity of plant and animal species making up the Earth's global, regional, and local ecosystem. Because of human destruction of ecosystem, large number of species are already extinct. Extinction results from overhunting, overfishing, and introducing non-native species that crowd out previous inhabitants. But the most important cause is loss of habitat, the destruction of rain, forest, pollution of lakes and streams, and loss of agricultural lands to urban sprawl. For example, the loss of native microorganisms can lead to chronic pollution of rivers or to the transformation of arable land into desert. Next, forest and ocean. Two types of habitat, tropical rainforest and ocean, are especially important to biodiversity and the atmosphere. Both are also reservoirs of commercially profitable research such as fish and wood. They differ in that forests are located almost entirely within state territory, whereas oceans are largely beyond any state territory in the global community. Next, pollution. Pollution generally creates a collective good problem, but one that is not often global in scale. Pollution is more often a regional or bilateral issue, with some exceptions, such as dumping at sea. The effects of pollution are limited to the state where it occurs and its close neighbor, U.S. industrial smoke Tech emission cause acid rain in Canada but do not directly affect distant states. China's terrible air pollution kills nearly half a million Chinese a year but few foreigners. Even when pollution crosses state border, it often has its strongest effect closer to the source. This localist effect makes for a somewhat less intractable collective good problem because a polluting state can solve them free, right, and few actors are involved.
Hello, my name is Nova, and now is about natural resources. Three aspects of natural resources shape their role in international conflict. First, they are required for the operation of an industrial economy, sometimes even an agrarian one. And the second, there's source, mineral deposits, rivers, and so forth are associated with particular territories over which states may fight for control. And third, natural resources tend to be unevenly distributed with plentiful supplies in some states and an absence in others. These aspects mean that trade in natural resources is extremely profitable. Much additional wealth is created by such trade, and they also mean that trade is resources is very politicized, creating market imperfections such as monopoly, oligopoly, and price manipulation, sometimes by cartels. Next. World energy. Of the various natural resources required by states, energy resources are central. The commercial fuels that power the world's industrial economies are oil, about 40% of world energy consumption, and then coal, 30%, natural gas, 25%, and hydroelectric and nuclear power, 5%. The fossil fuels, this account for 95% of world energy consumptions. Some energy consumed as sorry, electricity comes from hydroelectric dams or nuclear power plants, but most of comes from burning fossil fuels in electric generating plants. Saudi Arabia is the large oil export and hold the large oil reserve. The politics of world energy revolve around Middle Eastern oil ship to Western Europe, China, Japan, and North America. The importance of oil in the industrialized economies helps explain the political importance of the Middle East in world politics. Not only is energy a crucial economy sector, but it is also one of the most politically sensitive because of the dependence of the West on energy import from the Middle East and the rest of the global South. Next. The next is about minerals. To build the infrastructure and others manufacture good that create wealth in national economy, state need other raw materials in addition of energy. This include metals, others minerals, and relate materials extract through mining. The political economy of mineral iron, copper, platinum, and so forth differs from that of war energy. The value of international trade in oil is many times that of any mineral. Moreover, minerals supply is not so concentrated in one region of the world. Industrialist countries have also reduced their vulnerability by stockpiling strategic mineral. China currently holds a near monopoly on the world supply of rare earth minerals, vital in small amount to the production of electronics. I mean, China has cut export at times to boost this mineral price. But in the last 5 years, however, countries such as Vietnam have begun to produce some of these elements to challenge China's grip on the market. Next, in addition to energy and minerals, state needs water. This need increases as society industrialize as it intensifies agriculture and as its population grows. Water use in 35 times that of just a few countries ago and grew twice as fast as population in the 20th quarter. Yet water supplies are relatively unchanging and are becoming depleted in many places. One fifth of the world population lacks safe drink water, and 80 countries suffer water shortage. Water supplies river and water tables often cross international boundaries. Thus, access to water is increasingly a source of international conflict. Sometimes, when several states share access to a single water table, this conflict are a collective good problem.
Population global population reached a record high today, as it does every day, world population 7 billion in 2016. It's growing by 18 million each year. For the coming 20 to 50 years, world population growth will be driven rather than mechanistically by the large number of children today's population in the global south. Half the world population growth occurs in just 6 countries: India, China, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. When today's children grow up, the number of children they bear will be affected by their income. By 2050, the world population could be 9 billion, with a final leveling out around 10 billion in the next 100 years. The demographic transition, populating the result from the difference between that birth from hundreds of people and rates of death. The process of economic development brings about a change in the birth rates and death rates that follows a fairly universal pattern called the demographic transition. First, death rates fall as a food supplies increase and access to health care expand. Later, birth rates fall as people become educated, more secure, and more recognized, and as the status of women in society rises. As a state makes a democratic transition, the structure of its people change dramatically, and the beginning and middle of the process, most of the people is young. So, population policies. The policies, the governments itself, not just economic and demographic condition influence the birth rate. Among the most important sites are those regarding birth control. At one extreme, China used its strong government control to enforce a limit of one child per couple. But the Chinese policy had drawbacks. It limits individual freedom in favor of government control. Next slide. This right. People drop is determined by the death rate as well as the birth rate. The proportion of babies who die within their first year is the infant mortality rate. Info- Infant mortality is 4% worldwide, 1% or less in rich countries, but more than 10% in the poorest countries, and even higher in local pockets of extreme poverty. But worse, drug epidemics and disasters have an effect locally but hardly matter globally. Their mortality factor, however, HIV/AIDS, other infection dies, and smoking deserve special attention because they extend every high cost even if they do not much affect global population trends. Uh, AIDS is not the only concern. Tuberculosis, malaria, hepatitis, and ever and malaria have all emerged of spread in recent decades, often mutating into drug resistant forms. In 2014, the world dealt with a significant disease crisis in West Africa. The Ebola virus became widespread in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. It is estimated that nearly 10,000 people died as a result of the disease. Epidemics among animals have a major effect as well. In 2009, 2010, swine flu spread quickly around the globe, leading first countries to restrict travel to Mexico.